And whenever you create new button like this, you will notice this save button turns red. That means you should save the change. If I click on it, it turns to gray. Now, if I move this around with my middle mouse button, this will turn to red again. This button refreshes the window. Also, it will undo the last change that you made. So if I click on it, it will undo the last change. And if you want to create multiple buttons at once, you can select multiple objects. If I hold down Shift key and drag and drop, it will create multiple buttons horizontally. If I hold down Control key and drag and drop, it will create the multiple buttons vertically. If I hold down Control and Shift and then drag and drop, it will capture positions of the objects and then lay out on the map automatically. To demonstrate button creation, I have a better example here. I'm selecting all the hand controls, finger controls. Now, I'm going to make sure the camera view is looking at the hand so that each knuckle control is not overlapping one another. If I look at this hand with this view, and if I try to create multiple buttons, hold down Control and Shift and try to drag and drop, it will say the new buttons will be too crowded to fit in the current window size. And then it will suggest me to have a better view or bigger window size. So I'm going to close out. I don't want any overlapping buttons. So I'm going to have this view. I'm going to undo my last creation here. I'm going to click on this refresh button. And now I'm going to drag and drop one more time. Voila. I get all the buttons. So now we have covered all the buttons at the bottom tools. You can always click this separator bar. It will toggle the visibility of the tool. You can do the same thing to the upper one. Now, if you click this icon, it will bring up Tools window. And if you look at this upper part, there's a slider. What it does is, if you drag this, it will change the tab layout. Or you can just click the tab. You can use these arrows, or you can just simply stretch out so that you can browse through the tabs. In the new button tab, here you can create new buttons. This one has a full options here. What you have down here, you can think of this as a mini version of this. Just like the bottom tool, you can select the command in here. And as you go through this command option, the sub options change. For select command, there's an option called change tool to. Literally what it does is when you click this button, it will also change your manipulator to move tool or rotate tool or scale tool or no change. Another option is number of buttons to create. You can either create one or multiple buttons. In multiple options, you can create them horizontally, vertically, or you can capture them through your current camera view. You can choose any of these colors. You can edit the colors later, however you like. I'm going to select all these. I'm going to center them like this. I'm going to drag and drop. Boom. To delete the buttons, as it says, you can drag and drop back to anywhere in this window. Or you can drag and drop to the bottom tray or upper one. Doesn't really matter. Anywhere except this map area. But imagine that you have to delete every single button here. That will be a nightmare. The way I do, if I have to delete out all these buttons, I would rather go to geometry mode, select all the buttons, delete, go back to map layout, boom, all gone. Let's go back to the tool UI. So I'm going to select this object. This time, I'm going to just create one button with no change option. Create one button here. And this time, I'm going to set this option. Make another button. Next, rotate tool. Next, scale tool. So now, I'm going to set my manipulator to the select tool. If I click the first button, it will not change my manipulator. If I select the second one, it will select the object, plus it will set the tool to the move tool. The next one, it will set to the rotate tool. The last one, it will set to the scale tool. In the key option, when you create key button, you can choose all keyable attributes or transform channels only or selected channels only. When you go by this option, you need to select channels, then create. Reset button, same option. Toggle, the option is grayed out because you always have to select channel to create one. Pose. This is interesting. First of all, let's talk about attributes options. As a default, it is set to selected only, but I can go by all keyable. Pose slider position option. As a default, it is set to right. You can choose left, below, above. I like the slider to be on the right hand side or below, but it is totally up to you. So let me create one. I'm gonna rotate it like this, and I'm gonna go by transform only attributes. I'm gonna drag and drop a button right here. As you can see, slider and the reset button are located on the right hand side of the button. If I go by the left, boom. Oh, it is overlapping. I'm gonna just move it over there like this. Above. So you can have different styles, however you like. They function exactly the same. Reset, pose, reset, pose. Or you can have in-betweens. Here I have example file. I made finger joint control buttons right here. I made pose button for each finger. So thumb, index, middle finger, ring fingers, pinky. reset them, or I can have one pause button control 5 fingers at the same time. You don't have to do it this way. This is just an example. And finally, the last command type, range. Range button, comparing to pause button, it has another option. You can create multiple buttons. Let me demonstrate. I am selecting one control for this facial control. It has 4 different channels. Each channel triggers different blend shapes, like so. I can either select each channel and create each range button like this, or if you're lazy like me, you can select all the channels, then you go multi-vertical like this, voila. Then you can use each one of these like that. Let me undo this. If you try to create multiple buttons horizontally, but having slider positions such as right or left, see what happens. I am still selecting multiple channels here. If I drag and drop here, it will say the position of the sliders will overlap other buttons. Try with below or above instead. So, it doesn't like overlapping. We'll try below, boom. Now I've got this. It will work exactly the same way, just different orientation. And you might have noticed using middle mouse button, you cannot move around slider or the reset button. But when you move the button, the rest will follow automatically. When you try to remove this, you just have to remove the button. The rest will be gone together.